breakout horror movies are pretty hard to come by. So surely that means once a filmmaker finds the magic recipe to a fantastic movie, they can have a whip through the Necronomicon and pull out something equally brilliant the second time too, right? Well, I hate to break it to you, but we've seen enough Final Destinations and Saw movies to know what a follow-up usually means. However, luckily for us, expectation doesn't define the standard, and there are plenty of sequel films out there pumped full of as much infectious saliva as their predecessors, bringing back the scariest monsters, the most badass protagonists, and dreaded spine-tingling atmosphere in gory abundance. These are the films that got a midnight snack and transformed franchises into their most grotesque gremlin glory. Some may even go as far to say that they're better, but that's up to you to decide. With that in mind, I'm Ash from What Culture, and these are the 10 best horror movie sequels. 10. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Originally, the Halloween films were supposed to be an anthology format of scary films, encapsulating the Michael Myers story within Halloween 1 and 2, and moving on to a new format from number 3 onwards. Season of the Witch is the result of John Carpenter's experimentation, and it's one that paid off, even if it isn't remembered quite as widely as our very own Haddonfield Stabber. Featuring a madman attempting to recreate an ancient Halloween ritual with silver shamrock masks, a doctor and his patient's daughter team up to try and stop him before he invokes deadly witchcraft that will kill millions of children. It's a daring, bold move from a director who already has something good set up with 2 films worth of lore to take the franchise somewhere completely new. And it definitely works as a fun little horror movie. 9. Final Destination 3. The premise of Final Destination is simple. One person saves a group from imminent, exaggerated, gory death in a freak accident, and the Grim Reaper is pissed about it. Living on borrowed time, those that were supposed to die have to pay their debt back in equally exaggerated, gory, freak accidents. It's simple and effective and enough to make you cringe at the simplest of activities. Even taking the lift is enough to make you lose your head. Ooh. Whilst I did actually poke fun at this very film in the opening, the third instalment is arguably the series' best, getting its campy formula completely right for the first time with a mix of horrible coincidences and hilarious consequences. It isn't about being believable or serious or even that frightening, but manages to tightrope walk between ridiculous and actually a bit terror-inducing with each increasingly crazy death. Shout out to the sunbed scene for single-handedly taking down tanning salon sales by 678%. 8. Paranormal Activity The Marked Ones. Functioning as the 5th entry into the franchise, Paranormal Activity The Marked Ones follows its previous examples, playing out as a supernatural horror story documented by an unfortunate soul that manages to get possessed. You know, it must be a real problem when there's been 6 consecutive films about it, jeez. Set in a Latin American neighbourhood and generally offering something a little more interesting than Paranormal Activity's usual things go bump in the night premise, it's one of the most well put together films in the franchise, and distills all the best qualities between the 6. 7. Blair Witch. 2016 sequel Blair Witch does take out the question of whether the events of the first film were supernatural or the result of hysteria by plopping a horrible pasty creature in the woods with its protagonist. On the hunt for what happened to his sister, James Donahue makes the same mistake of going into the Burkittsville woods and succumbs to a series of time-bending, mind-melding, absolutely bed-wetting experiences in the forest. It's obviously a big ask for a sequel to live up to something as legendary as the Blair Witch Project, as Book of Shadows soon proved. But Blair Witch is a genuinely scary rendition of the legend that stands out from the original as well as updating it. 6. Dawn of the Dead. Is any horror list complete without George A. Romero making an appearance? His sequel to Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, was the spark of a franchise that has run long and healthily since the inception of the modern zombie movie, which you know he was also responsible for. Setting the scene in full Technicolor, a group of stragglers in a giant zombie apocalypse are holed up in a Pennsylvanian shopping mall after escaping their nearby radio station in a helicopter. Pumped full of allegory as well as some crazy zombie bashing, Dawn of the Dead is the distilled excellency of Romero in one bite-sized chunk. A particularly gross, pus-filled bite though, mind. 5. Rec 2. Continuing straight on from the original film's established setting, Rec 2 shows us exactly what happened the fateful evening Angela was attacked in the attic. Utilising the same concept but with new characters, perspectives and audience expectation, Rec 2 successfully built right on top of the world it had created and made something both the same and different, perfectly balancing features of the original with new, horrifying discoveries. Whilst the third movie didn't quite know what to do with itself, the original Rec was adapted for American audiences into Quarantine, a shot-by-shot remake that was followed up with a new original story in Quarantine 2, which coincidentally is a sequel much better than its unnecessary predecessor. 4. Evil Dead 2. The Evil Dead brought about a body horror sensation, with its first movie that's consistently reenacted up to this day, with the most notable example being Cabin in the Woods. Evil Dead 2, however, came first, boldly making itself just as memorable as its predecessor for just how much ridiculousness Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell could squeeze into the hilarious sequel. Evil Dead 2 is in itself a spoof movie, taking all the serious, claustrophobic, terrifying onslaught of possessed demon people locked in the basement and turning it all right on its head. As I always say, bigger really is better, as proven by the film that brought Ash Williams as the chainsaw-wielding defeater of evil that has graced our screens for the best part of 30 years. 3. VHS 2. The first VHS film was remarkable for its premise, an anthology of home videos strung together with a mysterious framing narrative that really made found footage work. Utilising unique perspectives in the form of cameras attached to eyeglasses and computer chats, it wasn't long until a cult following formed, and a second movie came about and defied all movie sequel expectations, proving itself to be fundamentally better than the original. Featuring a man who can see ghosts through his ocular implants and an alien invasion from the point of view of a GoPro stuck on a dog, the movie is bizarrely inventive when it comes to freshening up both the shaky cam subgenre as well as its own franchise. Just don't go hunting around for the third film, their lucky streak really didn't last out. 2. Aliens. Serving as the follow-up to Ridley Scott's science fiction scarefest Alien, Aliens is a rare breed of sequel that dramatically changes the formula of the first film to create something entirely new but equally brilliant. Transforming one skulking xenomorph into an army of terrifying aliens, the film is the answer to the question that nobody knew they needed. What happens if you stick a bunch of flame-throwing Marines onto a random planet and make them fight crazy strong space monsters? With Ripley turned into a power-loading mother, Jones the Cat kept safe and well, and a group of classic action hero military badasses ready to fight their way through the Horde, it's the perfect combination of horror nasties and classically brilliant filmmaking. 1. The Silence of the Lambs. Dem's follow-up to Red Dragon is obviously best enjoyed with a nice Chianti and some fava beans, serving up a delightful dinner-time treat that follows an FBI agent in training attempting to gain insight into a case by getting into the mind of Hannibal Lecter, a cannibalistic serial killer. An expertly crafted horror movie that combines incredible acting, a tightly woven narrative, and intense visuals, The Silence of the Lambs has rightly earned its spot as one of the best horror movies of all time, and the only one to have ever won a Best Picture Oscar.